to welcome everybody today. You are at this session about the Dickens Project. The Dickens Project exemplifies virtual collaboration, which is key to virtual worlds. I'm Dr. Valerie Hill, and I'm the director of the Community Virtual Library, and my colleagues, Breiana, Theodore with her MLS, and Dr. Mary Pat Lynch, they will introduce themselves as we go along with our presentation today. Our presentation today will share the best practices for collaborating, which is key in virtual worlds, to provide high-quality immersive experiences. We believe it requires a variety of skills, and not a single one of us has all of the skills that are necessary alone to create and build high-quality immersive learning environments that are filled with authentic and accurate content. So our goal today, we hope to show the necessity of collaboration among educators, builders, librarians, instructional designers, everybody working as a team in order to provide a high-quality immersive experience. So the Seanchai Library, and that's how you pronounce it, Seanchai, created the Dickens Project in Second Life in 2013 and has presented it annually for the past 6 years, every year during the month of December. And the project focuses on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, which is great over the holiday season, and it includes live readings of A Christmas Carol. It also shares a lot of content on the Victorian era, and people can dress in that attire. The Community Virtual Library and Seanchai Library, we've had a partnership for years and years. In fact, we shared land and resources in the past. In 2016, Jodie, the leader of the Seanchai Library and the director of the Dickens Project, Callie, you might know her, Caledonia Sky Tower in Second Life, she contacted me and the Community Virtual Library with an idea. She suggested that we build a resource center at the Dickens Project, sort of a virtual library that would share research projects that would enhance the Dickens Project. So the Community Virtual Library sent out a call for proposals to all of the educational groups and students in virtual worlds in Second Life through emails and listservs and other communication channels to tell them and give them the call for proposal for research projects on the Dickens Project. Then the CVL Dickens Resource Center was built with 8 research projects that first year. And since then, it has continued to expand year after year. So what we want to share today is the roles that are needed to use virtual worlds for immersive learning, because they include teachers that understand the best practices and the curriculum needs of the students. It includes builders with the skills necessary to create aesthetically pleasing environments, not some of those with neon flashing things that look all crazy. And not everyone has those skills. And so you need the builders, and then you also need instructional designers that can embed the content right into the experience. So today we're going to share 3 different perspectives on collaboration that are essential to constructive learning in virtual world projects, such as this one, the Dickens Project. So first, I'll share my perspective as the librarian, and then Breiana, that's Jodie Landon here in Second Life, she will share the builder's perspective, and Mary Pat, that's Aoife, will share the game designer's perspective of collaborating for this project. So as a librarian, as the director of the Community Virtual Library, my role included curating and collecting the research projects and all of the library resources that would be centered on Charles Dickens and the Victorian era. My job also included coordinating with the Seanchai Library project director, Callie, Judy Cohen, all of the educational groups in virtual worlds, and then also coordinating with the builder and the game designer at the Dickens Project, and then also planning live events and tours. So each year that we've been involved, and that's 3 years now we've done this, CVL has hosted a minimum of 3 tours during the month. engaging educational groups to come and attend the many daily events that are offered at the Dickens Project. And live events and tours are what make virtual worlds dynamic. Sure, you can go all by yourself and see the Dickens Project, but it's much better when you experience it with others. So during the live tours to the CVL Dickens Resource Center, the researchers that came up with these projects and shared them, they were given an opportunity to talk about it and share their research topic, just like you would at a physical research symposium. A researcher on disability in Dickens literature, reflections of the Victorian era's ambivalent attitudes toward disability. That led to a discussion on attitudes that have extended to today about disabilities that we still have today. The research projects are on display throughout the month so that they can be revisited to dig deeper into those, or if someone's particularly interested in a certain one. The participants of the tour are led through the research projects and then on to the Dickens Library to receive many of Dickens' works in digital formats, so they can actually click on books and take them into their inventory and read them. When Caledonia first came to me with the idea of research projects, she suggested topics such as, what disease might Tiny Tim have actually been suffering from? Or what were the working conditions really like in London during that time period? Or what kind of food was available? Were they healthy, eating nutritious foods? So over these past 3 years, researchers have added things like topics like debtors' prisons, medicine and healthcare, Dickens and the law. We had a law librarian present that one. Clothing in the Victorian era, architecture, and archival practices then and now. Dickens' A Christmas Carol has become a holiday classic that we all love, and some of the traditions of the era embedded into the story are embedded in our lives. Some people have credited Dickens with inventing our holiday traditions, but actually he was writing exactly at the right time, because there was a revival of customs underway, and the research projects shared the foods popular during the Victorian era. And although, for example, sugar was a rare treat because there was a high sugar tax, at Christmas time, special treats like Christmas crackers became popular. Dickens was a foodie, we might say. He shared tons of descriptions about food, such as the food described when Scrooge meets the ghost of Christmas present. He says, heaped on the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, brawn, great joints of meat, sucking pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples. The Community Virtual Library also partners with a library called the Antique Pattern Library, and both CVL and APL are projects of new media arts. I'll put that in the text chat. The Antique Pattern Library is an online catalog of old manuscripts and patterns and materials, and they contributed materials to the Dickens Project to help create authenticity, because historical experience in virtual worlds often include clothing and attire for a particular historical era. So CVL is striving to collect resources about authentic historical clothing and patterns to help people who want to do role play that's accurate be able to find these things. For example, chairs, clothing, slippers, draperies, and all of these were created with intricate embroidered patterns that can be found at the APL online. Of course, it's not always possible to be completely accurate. We're not the costume police here with every historical detail. But I think as educators, advocating the evaluation of historical accuracy and then understanding that importance as educators, that's modeling best practices, and that's important for students. Even just talking about the inaccuracies that we might see, that somebody's wearing something that wouldn't fit in that historical period, that can be a real learning experience for our students. Conversations about immersive learning and the challenges that we all face as educators that took place at the Dickens Project. As we were going throughout the tours, we would discuss these kinds of things and the best practices for historical role play. And some of the challenges that we discussed included how to archive this digital content, and year after year as the project is built, and then on into the future. And this is an important goal for librarians that the CVL librarians are working on, archival of digital content. We're going to have a room in the Digital Citizenship Museum on that topic. We're also working on collecting the best practices through machinima and exploring various file formats for archival in the future. So as we look to the future, our goals for the Dickens Project 2019, because we certainly want to continue partnering on this amazing educational experience, our goals include an expansion of the CVL Resource Center with more research projects. So contact me later if you're interested in anything to do with that time period and you'd like to get involved. Also, continued connectivity with educational groups so that they can find out about this and share what's been done and what we're doing, as well as plans for additional live events for educators, students, and anyone is interested in historical virtual environments. So I'm going to turn the presentation over now to Breiana, that's Jodie Landon. I enjoyed working with her so much. She's also the lead curator librarian for the nonprofit Commons resource library here at Second Life. So Jodie, I'll let you take away the slides at this time.
All right, we should be all set here. Okay, so my name is Breiana Theodore, or just Bree. Most people call me Bree. And I'm a graduate of San Jose State University's Master of Library and Information Science program. Before grad school, I'd actually been building in Second Life for over 4 years on a different account. And my involvement with the Community Virtual Library began when I joined my alma mater's SL-based library program, the VCARA program, which stands for the Virtual Center for Archives and Records Administration. And through VCARA, I met Val and became involved with the Community Virtual Library as a reference librarian and a builder, pretty casually at first, but it kind of turned into something else over time. More of a serious sort of position. And I've worked on various building projects in the last year and a half in collaboration with CVL, VCARA, the Dickens Project, and also the Nonprofit Resource Center. I've designed and built conference spaces, interactive exhibits, and a nonprofit resource library. And in that time, I've learned a great deal about what collaboration means on a medium like Second Life. And I've noticed some recurring patterns therein as well. And since building projects, regardless of theme, tend to involve similar processes, what follows isn't going to be a step-by-step reflection of my personal experience building for the Dickens Project. Instead, it's going to be a general description of what building projects tend to entail, followed by the unique challenges that come with building in Second Life, and the collaborative resources that builders can use to overcome those challenges. So, when building or designing a virtual space, I've learned that collaboration is necessary at nearly every stage in the process. It's also something that kind of emerges naturally out of the building process as well. And so the members of the organization that commission a building project need to first establish a set of guidelines and deadlines for the builder to follow. Normally, building projects are made with a particular event in mind. For example, when I was working with the Nonprofit Resource Center, they had a particular date in mind that they wanted a new library to be open by. So, that gave us a sort of timeline of how quickly the work needed to be done. Anyway, this typically involves having a discussion about the event's theme and forming a timeline for the whole building process, as I've just mentioned. And in order to ensure that the builder's approach to designing a space falls in line with the desires and needs of the commissioning party, a great deal of consistent communication and evaluation is typically required throughout the process. And so for those who may be unfamiliar with this concept, building in Second Life refers to the process of creating objects out of prims. And prims, or primitives, are 3D shapes that are used as starting points for creating objects in Second Life. And all objects in SL are made of prims that have been manipulated to look like other items, like terrain, interior decorations, clothing, vehicles, anything else that you can think of, anything that you see around you right now. And pictured on the screen are the many prim options that can be used as a starting point for building, each with their own particular value and uses. And as a builder, you have many options. You can decide to build your own objects, which can be time consuming, or you can find objects created by others and purchase them on the marketplace, which can be expensive. And what you choose may depend on several factors, like the availability of the objects that you need on the marketplace, the amount of time that you have to complete the project, and the amount of money that you're able to spend. People who build in Second Life often tend to have very robust inventories filled with items that they've collected over time, a virtual Mary Poppins bag of sorts. In the interest of saving money and time, a builder will often begin the building process by taking note of which appropriate items may already be in their inventory. For example, for a theme like the Dickens Project, where we're in Victorian England, I may already have in my inventory a kind of antique table, which could maybe work for any variety of themes, so that would kind of save me time in trying to find something like that for designing a space. And pictured here is my own inventory, and I've sort of given an example of how I've organized the items that I used to build for the Dickens Project. Everything kind of organized into folders so that I can more easily find the things that I need. And so after determining which suitable pieces are already in their possession, a builder will often need to seek out other materials to meet the more idiosyncratic needs of the theme. And at this early stage, collaboration tends to take the form of working with the commissioning party to find out what their vision is for the space and devising a plan of action. And for me, a building project always begins by taking a look at the structure that needs to be decorated. And then from there, I usually bounce ideas off of my graphic designer friend, Amanda Gerardin, pictured above. She's Brigitte Chavalova in Second Life, and she has a lot of knowledge about Second Life photography, fashion blogging, and building as well. And I often encounter builders block pretty regularly at the very beginning of a project, so it's extremely helpful to have someone to brainstorm with and to collaborate with who may visualize a space differently than I do. And for the Dickens Project, I was tasked with decorating the interior of the CBL Resource Center and the Dickens Library. And a major challenge was the structure of the building itself. As you can see in the picture, it was a very large structure with extremely tall walls, pillars, and windows. Additionally, it had an industrial feel to it with its steel-plated floors and exposed railings. And it was my job to make this space feel warm, welcoming, and holiday-like, while also facilitating access to the research presentations that the building was meant to display. And receiving feedback from Val and Jodie during the building process was crucial in ensuring that I was headed in the right direction. Seeing as the event focused on the Victorian era, another challenge in creating this type of immersive environment was ensuring that the decorative items in the space were as historically accurate as possible, as Val was sort of mentioning briefly earlier. For me, that was a challenge because most of my building projects so far have been quite contemporary in nature, and I was entering into unfamiliar territory with the event's Victorian theme. Collaboration again comes into play here because in working with Amanda on this project, she demonstrated a substantive knowledge of Second Life-based period decor that was crucial for the design of those spaces. Additionally, collaboration of this sort is particularly important because working within a theme can pose very unique challenges in Second Life. Unlike real-world event planners, builders in SL are limited by the range of decorative options available for sale on the marketplace, assuming that you don't want to take the time to build those objects that you need yourself. And for example, if a theme is very uncommon, very specific, or particularly obscure, those related items will likely be more difficult to find. The marketplace has a notoriously unreliable keyword search mechanism. A common issue with relying on natural language as a mode of subject representation is that languages are very rich and complex. That's to say, we often use different words to describe the same things. A builder seeking out Dickensian decor items on the marketplace using the keyword Dickens may find some relevant items, but they may also find, as pictured above, pools and jacuzzis sold by a shop owner with the word Dickens in their username. Further, relevant items may be missed completely because their respective shop owners perhaps chose to describe those items with keywords that you just hadn't thought to use. Another issue with the marketplace is that many of the items that show up can be very out of date, having been made before the advent of Mesh, which are 3D models that can allow for more realism than some print-based objects. Complicating things further, shops that sell newer and higher quality decorative items sometimes have no marketplace shops at all. They do need librarians. Some of these newer shops only exist in world, which of course makes it necessary to first possess knowledge of the shop as well as a landmark before visiting, which isn't great if you're someone who's trying to browse around and find these objects. It's almost impossible if you don't have a source of knowledge from, for example, other builders, which I will get to in just a moment. Yeah, adding a lot of keywords that you think would help you find the objects that you need sometimes don't really help very much. So I totally agree with you there. Okay, so the obstacles involved in navigating the marketplace can be circumvented by simply communicating with and collaborating with other builders. This can help you to cover your bases, as other suggestions may fill the gaps in your own knowledge, and then your knowledge may in turn do the same for someone else. One reliable method to get in touch with other builders is to join the free in-world group Love to Decorate, as pictured in the image on the left side of the screen. LTD is a very well-known home and garden website that promotes the newest decorative items and creations in Second Life. The in-world group is extremely active, and I've always received very prompt and helpful responses when asking questions, literally at any time of day, which is kind of nice. Unfortunately, there's also a vibrant community of builders who photograph their designs and share them on their blogs and Flickr pages. They're often very easy to contact and eager to help other builders, and they've been a wonderful source of inspiration for me during creative blocks. And what follows are examples of such design. The first builder I'd like to highlight is Kelly Topaz Firehawk, a longtime Second Life photographer and designer of nature-based sets and home interiors. She's kindly given me permission to share some of her beautiful work, and I've included a link to her Flickr page here. Please check her out. She makes extremely beautiful sets and just photographs them in such gorgeous ways. She's one of my favorites. And this design, which is called Road to Autumn, evokes a feeling of seasonal warmth and hominess. For builders who do a lot of landscaping design, it's great to appreciate the small details that we may normally overlook when entering into a new sim. For example, the slight curve of the dirt road towards the bottom of the image, the careful placement of the fallen autumn leaves below the reddening trees, the tinge of green in the patches of yellowing grass, and etc. These are all things that the builder will have spent hours to set up meticulously and with a particular vision in mind. Here's an example of her home interior designing style in this piece entitled Early Morning Eats. If there's a particular element of her designs that I want to utilize in my own building process, I can either take a look at the styling credits that she's made accessible on her Flickr page, or simply contact her in World and ask her for the details that I'm looking for. Yeah, her photos are insane. It's just gorgeous. And the next builder I'll be featuring is Devos Titanium, the editor-in-chief of Gallant magazine, which is a home and garden magazine for Second Life. He builds gorgeous sets and often photographs avatars within them to create specific types of atmosphere. He's graciously allowed me permission to share his incredible work as well, and I'll also be including a link to his Flickr page. His photos are insane as well. Like, please, please take a look at them. And in this image, which is titled "No One Can Extinguish Your Light," we can see the careful attention to detail in strategically placing several individual items such that the space looks as though it's currently being lived in. And in this image, the perfect tree, we can appreciate not only the gorgeous avatars in the foreground and the details there, such as Devos's avatar holding a red saw, but also the vintage car and natural clustering of trees and signage in the background, all contributing to a feeling of holiday nostalgia. As mentioned previously, focusing on detail is key when seeking inspiration from such talented designers. You can be confident that nothing pictured is extraneous and that every decorative item works towards creating an immersive atmosphere. Gallant Magazine, again, a home and garden and men's fashion magazine, is another great resource for builders. It's curated and edited by Devos Titanium and releases a quarter-annual issue filled with the creative works of SL's top designers, builders, shop owners, and photographers. If I've hit a creative block and know that the space I'm designing needs livening up with greenery or flowers, as an example, I know that Gallant's spring issue will have many options for me. And if, for example, I like the white roses in the corner of the magazine cover on the left side of the screen, or the mirror hanging above the dresser in the second image, I can access the styling credits and learn which shops to purchase them at. I have a note card, just so you guys know, containing each of these builders' Flickr pages, as well as the link to the Gallant Magazine's website. And I've also put together an introductory guide to some of my go-to shops for purchasing quality decorative items. So if anyone's interested in having this, please feel free to send me an IM, and I'd be more than happy to share with you. And so in conclusion, when working on any building project in Second Life, you're bound to encounter any, if not most, of the challenges that I've briefly discussed. By utilizing the various resources I've just talked about and by interacting with builders who are more experienced in working with a variety of themes, I was able to design a space for the Dickens Project that facilitated in giving visitors a truly immersive experience. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jodie. And now we'll turn our slides over to Aoife.
Welcome, everyone. It is lovely to be here sharing a project that has been important in my life forever. Not literally forever, but 10 years, you know, it's a long time. And I tested this. Now I need a reminder of how to get my text to come up. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. It wasn't. I got it. But it's not at the beginning. All right. This is the difference between testing and actually being on stage. If there is, I don't know it. Here we go. First slide. I am Aoife Lorefield in Second Life and Mary Pat Lynch in Ordinary Life. And as I've said, I am thrilled to be here sharing one segment of my experience with the Dickens Project, which has been dear to my heart since I entered Second Life 10 years ago. It started with the Seanchai Library programs, and we began with a reader's theater production. And you have already heard and seen images of how far we've come. We are immersed in creating immersive experiences. What, you may ask, is a library doing recreating Dickens London? As again you've heard not only here but throughout this conference, libraries everywhere are entering the worlds of social media as ways to share information and draw people into worlds of literature. Here in Second Life, we choose to use all the resources we can get our hands on and our heads around. The background I bring is instructional design, faculty development, and educational research. My undergrad and master's degrees were in anthropology and my doctorates in higher education. I worked primarily in medical education, a field that relies totally on simulations, immersion, and hands-on experiences. What better way to bring A Christmas Carol to life than to literally immerse visitors in virtual spaces that recreate the shabby schoolhouse, Fezziwig's warehouse, the meanly furnished counting house, and other settings. And we have been working collaboratively within the Seanchai Library community for years to do this under the direction of Caledonia Sky Tower, Jodie Collin, who is here in the audience with us today, and have taken this from small builds that would fit on a stage to the full sim recreations of Dickens London that we're doing now. In everything from hands-on projects for children to flight simulators for pilots, we know that immersive experiences work. But Second Life is not a school. Do people learn in Second Life? Of course they do. We do. We all do. But our visitors come for enjoyment, fun, and an experience of a much-loved story presented creatively in beautiful settings. We had to rely on engagement to draw people in. This became part of the design. My part this last year was that I knew I wanted a game to draw on familiar SL experiences like hunts, games, and role play. In addition, we wanted to include story, which is the heart of the Seanchai Library and the Dickens Project. This model became the Urchin experience, created and implemented for the first time in the 2018 Dickens Project. Why base a game experience around urchins, the poor children who roamed Dickens London? The plight of children, especially poor children, was central to Dickens' work. Whether writing about schools in Nicholas Nickleby, the abuses of child labor in Oliver Twist, or his own childhood in David Copperfield, Dickens cared about and advocated for children. Tiny Tim is one of A Christmas Carol's most memorable characters, and Scrooge's transformation begins with the reminder of the neglect he suffered as a boy. Also, to loop in one part of the collaboration of this project, Second Life has a vibrant urchin community of role players who range over many Sims. This community pops up in the steampunk Sims of New Babbage and at the annual Fantasy Fair and many other places. I knew they could help me develop my ideas, and indeed they did. I am a tinkerer. I can build and script just enough to be dangerous. I'm also a writer, an instructional designer, and all of these skills were absolutely needed to create the Urchin experience. Did I know how to script a game of this kind? No, absolutely not. I knew I would need help, and that help was generously given. I am lucky enough to count some excellent scripters among my SL friends, and they helped with ideas, critique, and in some cases, sample code. I want to give Builders Brewery a shout out as well. This incredibly generous community patiently answered my questions about techniques and specifics and tracking down errors. This group is well known for assisting builders from novice to expert. In addition to getting questions answered in group chat, a few builders reached out to me personally with detailed assistance. This project would not exist without their support. So this is I'll add an extra comment here, particularly in light of what Val and Bree have been sharing, which is that we as educators, we as librarians bring content and content structuring tools. And one of the key supports we need to enlist and develop are the technical skills within Second Life and other virtual worlds about how to realize, how to instantiate, how to create the structures that we know work, like in immersive learning and immersive engagement, and bring them into this environment. As I mentioned, the Urchin community in Second Life makes up skilled role players, as well as experienced builders and scripters. Several members of that community also offered ideas and critiques of the project as it developed. The Seanchai Library community also helped. Our community of readers and writers and lovers of literature includes people from varied backgrounds and amazing skills who are ready to help bring stories alive here in Second Life. So the proof is in the pudding. How did this actually work? How did people participate in the Urchin experience? You land at the Dickens Project in the Central Plaza and notice an information kiosk. There's a panel you can click on for a HUD. You click and receive a folder of information and objects that includes a titler, if you want your urchin to have a unique name, and the HUD you wear that guides and tracks your experiences. You can find things, coins on the street, treasure on the mucky shores of the Thames, where mudlarks scoured the tidal flats for whatever washed up. You can earn a few coins by sweeping the sidewalk in front of a shop or singing a holiday carol. You can use your coins to buy food, or in urchin fashion, you can steal and hope you don't get caught. Participants were invited to create outfits that included shapes, clothing, and props, with some provided free on the sim. Consistent with the experiences of poor children in Dickens' time, things did not always go well. Sometimes you got caught and lost everything you had and had to start again. Participants did come away with gifts, along with a new appreciation for what poor children faced. They were also invited to write stories about what they experienced and imagined. So this past season of the Dickens Project was the first time I did anything like this ever, and we incorporated it into the Dickens Project. What did we learn? As the designer and creator, I'm very pleased to report that the game worked. My code did not fail me. Those early critiques succeeded in finding the worst of the bugs. Working with the Urchin community was a delight. The adults who role play the usually scruffy children of various times and places are historians, creators, and role players of skill and generosity. Choosing this focus created a solid basic structure we can expand. And we plan to expand. The Urchin Experience will be back with more experiences, more options, more bells and whistles, and more characters to be created and explored. And here I will end my presentation and turn the platform and the mic back over to Val for questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Aoife. I think this really illustrates how important it is to bring our own unique perspectives into virtual worlds and then share and connect and collaborate.